When we admire the colorful wings of butterflies, we often assume that their vibrant hues come from pigments, the same way a red apple or green grass gets its color. However, this common understanding is far from the truth. In reality, butterfly wings aren't actually colored in the way we typically think. Instead of pigments that absorb light and reflect specific colors, butterflies create their dazzling displays of color through a fascinating phenomenon called structural color. The colors we see on their wings are a product of light interacting with their intricate microstructures, and the science behind this is nothing short of remarkable. To begin with, pigments work by absorbing certain wavelengths of light and reflecting others, which creates the colors we see in most objects around us. For example, when light hits a red apple, the pigments in the skin absorb all other wavelengths except for red, which is reflected to our eyes. But butterfly wings don't work this way. Rather than relying on chemical pigments, their colors emerge through the manipulation of light. This process is what we call structural color. It's a clever trick of nature that involves the physical structure of the butterfly's wings and how it interacts with light. The wings of butterflies are covered with tiny, microscopic scales arranged in specific patterns. These scales are so fine and delicate that they can't be seen without a microscope. The structure of these scales can vary across different species, but they are almost always designed to reflect light in a highly specific way. When light strikes these scales, it is refracted, bent, reflected, and sometimes diffracted, spread into different directions. These microscopic patterns cause the light to interact in such a way that it splits into different wavelengths. The light is broken up much like how a prism creates a rainbow. One of the most striking effects caused by structural color is iridescence. This is when the color of the butterfly's wings appears to change depending on the angle of the light or the viewer's perspective. The reason this happens is because of the way light interacts with the layered structures on the wings. Some butterflies have scales arranged in layers that create interference patterns when light hits them. Depending on the angle at which light strikes these scales, the reflected light can either reinforce certain wavelengths or cancel out others, producing different colors as the angle of view changes. This is the same effect that causes oil slicks or soap bubbles to shimmer with changing colors when viewed from different angles. At a more fundamental level, the colors produced by butterfly wings are a result of interference and diffraction, two principles of wave mechanics. The tiny scales on the wings act as microstructures that manipulate light by splitting it into multiple waves. These waves interact with one another, sometimes amplifying each other and other times canceling each other out. The result is that specific colors become more prominent depending on the arrangement of the scales and the wavelength of light involved. The beauty of structural color is that it doesn't require pigments, and the colors don't fade or degrade over time. Because the color is based on light's interaction with the wing's physical structure, it remains vibrant and durable, even as the butterfly ages. Now, you might be wondering why butterflies use such a complicated system of color creation when pigments would seem much simpler. The answer lies in the biological functions that structural color serves. Butterfly wings are not just pretty decorations. They play critical roles in survival, mating, and communication. In some species, structural color helps with camouflage. The scales on their wings reflect light in such a way that they blend in with the surrounding environment, making it harder for predators to spot them. This is especially true for species that live in environments like forests or grasslands, where their iridescent wings mimic the play of light and shadows on leaves and branches. In other species, butterflies use their vivid iridescent colors as a way to attract mates. The morpho butterfly, famous for its striking blue wings, is a prime example of this. Males flaunt their shimmering blue wings to impress females, and the brightness and vibrancy of their wings are often a signal of health and vitality. The more intense the structural color, the more likely a male butterfly will be chosen by a female. In this case, the butterfly's wings become a visual cue, a signal to potential mates about the individual's genetic fitness. From a chemical perspective, the creation of these colors is deeply tied to the structure of the butterfly's wings. The scales that cover the wings are made of proteins like keratin and chitin, which are naturally occurring in many biological organisms. These materials form intricate, nanostructured patterns that are fine-tuned to manipulate light in specific ways. In some butterflies, these scales have layers called lamellae, which act as tiny optical elements to create interference effects. The distance between these layers is often comparable to the wavelength of visible light, which allows them to interact with light in ways that pigments simply cannot. The fascinating part is that these structural colors can be more efficient than pigments. Since they don't rely on chemical compounds, structural colors don't degrade over time, which makes them more reliable for the butterfly. Additionally, the structure of the scales can also play a role in regulating temperature. In colder environments, butterflies may have darker, heat-absorbing colors, while those in warmer climates might have lighter, reflective colors to keep cool. This means that the butterfly's ability to generate structural color isn't just an aesthetic trait, it can also contribute to its thermal regulation and survival. The evolution of structural color in butterflies is a prime example of natural selection at work. Over millions of years, species have adapted their wing structures to enhance their chances of survival and reproduction. For example, butterflies living in dense forests or on the forest floor might develop wings that help them blend seamlessly with their environment, while those in open, sunny areas may develop wings that reflect light more intensely to ward off predators or attract mates. These colors are shaped by the need to communicate, survive, and reproduce, three key pillars of evolutionary success. In conclusion, butterfly wings aren't actually colored in the way most of us think. The vibrant blues, greens, and purples we admire are the result of an intricate dance between light and the microstructure of their wings. Instead of pigments, butterflies rely on structural color, a physical phenomenon that uses layers of microscopic scales to manipulate light, creating colors that shift and shimmer depending on the angle of the viewer. This fascinating process serves a variety of purposes, from camouflage and mate attraction to thermal regulation and survival in harsh environments. It's a brilliant example of how evolution has fine-tuned these tiny creatures to use the laws of light to their advantage. So, the next time you spot a butterfly fluttering by, remember, those stunning hues aren't pigments at all. They're a perfect demonstration of the way light can interact with the natural world in the most beautiful ways imaginable.